We read that in the Bible, most people are saying Jesus is God, but then question rises, how can he be God? Because number one, we learn that in the on the Old Testament, the book of Numbers, chapter number 23, verse 19, it says, for God is not a man that he can lie, nor the son of a man that he should repent. So we read that God is not a man, and we find that Jesus is a man. Who said so? Jesus is a man. Jesus called himself the son of a man, and therefore he is the son of a man, and God is not the son of a man, according to that passage. Then we read in the book of Hosea, chapter number 11, verse number 5, that God is not man, and Jesus was a man. So we read in the Bible that Jesus is a man. Who said so? In the book of Acts of the Apostles, chapter number 2, verse number 22, Peter is saying, the ye men of Israel, hear these words. Jesus of Nazareth, a man approved by God, by miracles and wonders and signs which God did by him in the midst of you. Ye yourself you also know. Who was Jesus? He was a man. Peter, the one who was walking with Jesus, he knows that Jesus is a man, and he cannot be God, because we read in the Bible that God cannot be seen. Jesus Christ is telling us in the book of John, chapter number 5, verse number 37, that it says, for you have never seen the shape of God at any time, nor heard his voice. So now, if you was God, you are supposed to say, I am God and you have seen me and all that. But he's the one who's telling people that they have never seen the shape of God, nor heard his voice. So now Jesus Christ, they were seeing him. So he cannot be God, because God cannot be seen. Jesus Christ is telling us in the book of John, chapter number 4, verse number 24, that God is spirit. He says to the woman of Samaria, for God is spirit. Those who worship him must worship him in truth and in spirit. So Jesus Christ was not spirit. For he himself is telling us that he was not a spirit. When we read the book of Luke, chapter number 24, verse number 36, when he meets his disciples, when he says, peace be upon you, shalom alaikum, or salam alaikum in Arabic, then from there the disciples were afraid, because they thought they've seen a ghost. And Jesus Christ said, why you have trouble in your heart? Behold my hands and my feet, it is I. For a spirit has no flesh and bones as you see me have. I have read this in the King James Version long ago. He said, for a spirit have no flesh and bones as you see me have. Meaning he was not spirit, because he had got flesh and bones. So then he said to them, don't you have anything to... Oh, then the disciples, they said, you do overjoyed happily. So then he said, ask them, don't you have anything for me to eat? Then the Bible tells us that for they gave him a broiled fish and a honeycomb, and he took it and he ate, to prove that he's not spirit, because spirits don't eat. So if he was spiritualized, he had no need to eat boiled fishes and honeycombs. So he is not God. Because now we read again, what is he saying about himself? He was asked, when you read the book of Mark, chapter number 12, verse number 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, that a scribe came to him, hearing him reasoning or arguing with people. Then he said, good master or rabbi, which of the greatest commandments of them all? Then he was asked, which are the greatest commandments of them all? Jesus Christ, in the Hebrew language, he said, Shama Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, which means, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So he's telling them that the Lord is one. He had an opportunity there, if he was God, to tell them that, no, I am God and you must worship me. But he never uttered such a statement in the entire Bible. Rather, he said, Shama Israel, hear, O Israel, Yingisa Israel, Zwan Israel, the Lord our God, Inkosi Nkulunkulu yethu, Shishukwenbu Shayina, is one God. Iwosi orintshwe uNkulunkulu inkosi eyodwa. So we read that. Sorry, my light just went off. So as I was quoting the verse there, let me quickly change my batteries. Then we come back. Voila, we are back. I've just changed the batteries there. Forgive me about that. So yeah, in the book of Numbers, Mark chapter number 12, verse number 28, 29, and 30, 31. Then the scribe said, teacher, you've said a good thing to say that there is only one God. Now the Jews, they understand that there is only one God. Jesus knows that there is only one God. We read this. He was repeating what was said by Prophet Moses in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter number 6, verse number 4. Same thing. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. The Jews, they understood that there is only one God, and this God cannot be seen. Because in the Old Testament, in the book of Exodus, God is telling us that no man can see him and live. So therefore, they were seeing Jesus, so we cannot be caught in that fashion. So most Christians are saying no man. But we read there in the books written by Paul. Hence, I've said that if you want to contradict Jesus, you must read Paul. And they said, they are quoting, I think it's a Philippians chapter 2, if not verse 6 or verse 5, but chapter 2, where it says, though he was in a form of God, he see it not fit to what. So like he took a form of a servant. They say something like that. They say he was in a form of God. That doesn't mean he is God. Being in the form of something doesn't mean you are that thing. If they said an angel appeared in the form of a man, it doesn't mean that the angel is a man. So being in the form of something doesn't mean that thing. You see? So if they said when you look at the sky, then you see clouds, maybe they are forming like a human shape. It doesn't mean that the angels the clouds are human, just that in a form. So being in a form doesn't mean that you are God. No, 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 no. Because me and you reading the Bible, we understand that when you read the book of Genesis, chapter number 33, verse number 10, it says the brother there, I think it's Isaac and Ishmael, he says, seeing you is like seeing God or the face of God. So saying like seeing the face of God, it doesn't mean that the person is God. So being in the form of something, in Zulu, we would say, owayenesimo esikaNkulunkulu. Owayenesimo esikaNkulunkulu. It doesn't mean ukuthi uNkulunkulu, umunesimo esikaNkulunkulu. No, it doesn't mean that. So people are saying, okay, now John 1:1 teaches us that in the beginning there was a word, the word was with God, and the word was God. Then they said the word there is Jesus. So let us go again slowly. In the beginning there was a word. Number one, word cannot exist on their own. So first thing first, we must correct that passage, because now in the beginning God, there must be God first before there is a word, because words can't come before God. So now that those ones who understand theology will tell you that was a imaginary note by the philosopher by the name of Philos. Some of them they call him Philos. So something just scared me. So some of them, they call him Philos. So that philosopher, I put the imaginary note there. Then John, him being copying this thing, because the Gospel of John was a later development of the Gospels. So now let us go to the very same book of John, what Jesus is saying in that book of John. In the book of John, chapter number 5, verse number 30, Jesus is saying, I can of my own self do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, or my judgment is righteous. For I seek not my own will, but the will of the Father who sent me, or the will of He who sent me. Listen, if He was God, how come this God can't do anything on His own? He's relying to the Father. So God doesn't rely to anyone to do things. So Jesus is telling us in the very same book of John that He can by Himself do anything. He does what God tells him to do. Even the ways that he speaks, he tells you in the book of John that the ways he speaks are not his, and he's only speak what he hears from the Father. So therefore he cannot be a God, because Jesus himself says in the book of John, chapter number 14, verse number 28, he says, for the Father is greater than all. And the Father is greater than all. In another passage, he said, for the Father is greater than I. That is in the book of John, chapter number 10. He said, for the Father is greater than I. I think that's verse number 29. John Gospel 10:29. For the Father is greater than I. So therefore, he is not God. Some are saying, the very same John that you are quoting, chapter number 10, there is a passage where Jesus Christ is saying, I and the Father are one. I and the Father are one. Then people are saying it means that he is God, because him and God are one, of which that's not true. Because to say we are one, it doesn't mean that the oneness of divinity or what. It's the oneness of purpose, because now it is for God to see that we as people, we are in the right direction, and for him as a prophet, we are in the right direction. So they are one in purpose, they are one in that, not that they are one in divinity and in essence. No, there is no such, because the very same one that we read there in the book of John, chapter number 10, verse number 8, is written in the book of John, chapter number 17, verse number 20 and 21, that Jesus Christ is praying to God Almighty that for the Father, you are in me and I am in you. I pray for these disciples that they may be in us, so that we can all be one. So do you mean that if Jesus is one with God, it means he's God, then how about the other disciples? The other 12 disciples, meaning now there are how many gods? 14, according to your logic and reasoning. If you are saying Jesus Christ saying he's one with God, it means that they are one thing. How about that verse? How can you interpret that verse? Because the name there in Greek, I think it's N. N means one. Then the very same N, or the very same oneness, is that one that is written in the book of Genesis, where they said these two shall be one. meaning Adam and Eve, a husband and wife, will be one joined together. This again is quoted by Jesus in the book of Mark, chapter number 10, verse number 9 and 10. He says, "For what the Lord has put together, let no man separate, let no man put asunder." So it doesn't mean that Adam didn't have his body and Eve didn't have his body. They both had separate bodies, but they are one in purpose. So that one that you read in the book of John, chapter number 10, verse number 8, it doesn't mean that he's one is like he's also God. Because now the context of it, we must understand. For one to know the context, we must read the start from verse 23, because most people, they don't really know the context.